Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Wind-Up from Kirklees Local TV. Joining me this week are our guests Jeanette Dyson, who is a Communications Manager, and Sam Travis, who is a Project Development Manager for the Farnley Estate. Also, we have Sofia Buncy from the Huddersfield Pakistani Community Alliance. Our topics for discussion in the first part of this week's show, are plans to create a new country park at Farnley Tyas to be enjoyed by many generations to come. Plus, we will be discussing the recent news that hospital parking charges have been increased, and in particular, the arrangements for blue badge holders. Farnley Estates is a large area of land that stretches from Hunley and Brockholes, from around Farnley Tyas and down to Lepton. It's around 1,500 acres in total, which is about the same size as 750 football pitches. The estate has been around for more than 500 years. It has ancient woodlands that date back to the reign of Henry VIII. Since then, it's only had 3 owners. Take a look at this.
We have to go back a little bit in time to understand that when my grandfather bought this estate in 1968, there were 32 farms here. Today there are only 4. And at the turn of the century, all the farms in the village were dairy farms. There is not one dairy farm left. Within 20 years, the one farm that will be left will not be big enough with the huge farms in Europe and America today. So we need to be looking at other things to make the land sustainable. So our strategy is looking over 25 years, and that in that 25 years we can bring all sorts of different activities to this estate.
The country park is a real opportunity to provide jobs for local people in the local area. Aerial activities, walking, cycling, health and education. And that's jobs for everybody. There'll be a need for park rangers, there'll be a need for people to run the associated facilities.
I've spoken with schools, organisations, fitness clubs, cycling clubs about how they wanted to use the estate and how businesses could benefit and expand.
It's a 25-year project. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. But to have the vision for a project of this nature, we need the support of local people.
But it's also about getting a workforce that's representative of the local area and providing equal opportunities for everyone around Huddersfield.
Everyone in Kirklees, please let us know what you think. Please let your local councillors know what you think as well.
Welcome back. Well, Jeanette and Sam, it seems like a fantastic project, 25-year strategy. Yeah, where will the proposed country park be?
It will actually be in Farnley Estates, which is an area of land that stretches from Hunley up and over Farnley Tyas village and down towards Lepton at Penistone Road. But that's just Farnley Estates land. There is the opportunity to make this project bigger, depending on the ambition of the people of Huddersfield.
Who is it that owns the land then? Is it a family? Is it a private company? Who is it that owns it?
It's privately owned by the Sykes family, who bought the estate in 1968, and they're actually only the 3rd owners within the last 500 years. And it's their ambition to make sure that the estate remains as a stunning countryside that can be enjoyed for everybody and for generations to come, that has led to where we are now and trying to turn Farnley Estates into a Farnley country park for Huddersfield.
Sam, you're the project development manager of this. Have you spoke to anybody at all yet?
Yeah, we've reached out to all the communities around the area with regards to communities, organisation, businesses, charities, to see how they would like to use the estate. We've got a lot of land that's just not, it's not benefiting anybody at the moment. So we want to get people active out there. We want health, leisure, tourism to benefit everybody, not just the people of Farnley Tyas, but everybody in Huddersfield.
Okay. And how far has the research actually gone then? Is it just with Huddersfield, but you've got Dewsbury?
At the minute, we've kind of just reached the boundary of Huddersfield. The next stage, we'll be taking it to Dewsbury and further afield. We want to capture everybody's, imaginations, ideas, and really, within an hour's drive time, they're the people that we want to hit, and we want their feedback and their views. So it's not just for the people of Huddersfield. It can be for, it can be the nation. So.
It'd be great if it was that, wouldn't it? What are the challenges for this then? Has anything come out of? Was there any challenges so far that you didn't realise, but now you do?
I think one of the challenges, probably for Sam and myself, is actually learning about the process of farming as much as anything. I think that's one thing that we've certainly learned about. As far as the country park goes, we've actually been physically asking people what are the negatives, what do they have against this, and we're yet to find any feedback that people say they don't want it. Everybody is so positive, but when you realise that you've got the option for all this great open space, for leisure, for health, for well-being, and Sam has actually been speaking to other people as well. She's been talking to national organisations such as Riding for the Disabled, Access for All, and different community groups that can access and use the estate and for education as well, for schools.
Okay, so you said there's been no negative response so far. What about Green Belt? I mean, you're saying that the land dates back as far as Henry VIII. Isn't any listed trees or anything like that? But
there are. I mean, the idea would be to use the land to the best of its ability and to allow people to actually come onto the land and use the land. So in that sense, it's about preserving what we've already got. One of the things that will be of benefit to people is that they can actually now access this land, whereas before it was all farmland that people couldn't actually come onto.
So what type of support are you looking for then?
We're looking for anybody and everybody that wants to get out and about into the countryside for education, for all types of different reasons. And ideally, we want to launch a campaign called People for the Park. And really, it's your voices that count. For us to be able to tell people that this is what people want, we need the evidence. So your voices matter to us.
It's really interesting as well, Sofia, because I don't know about your family from Pakistan and India. There's a lot of rural communities where my old man and my grandfather and my parents came from, and yet when we go out to these rural areas, we never see minorities in the rural areas. So I think it'd be great to have,
of course, yeah,
something just on the
even
doorstep.
With myself, I was surprised to see there was something being done in the area. I think it's a fantastic initiative. A lot of Pakistani people that have come to the UK are from farming backgrounds. They love greenery, they love that type of thing, and I think with the right provision in place, whether that's could be anything, you could be looking at camping, just open spaces, climbing. There's so much potential. I know when Milton told me about the project, I was so excited for outdoor activities and pursuits. Yep. Definitely.
Sam and Jeanette, I wish you the very, very best in your endeavours and to try and get this park. And if there's anything that we can do here at KLTV, please feel free to come back and tell us what's going on, and we'll do our very best to get that message out. Hospital parking charges reported in Huddersfield Examiner on the 22nd of the 4th, 2015. Parking charges for all patients and Huddersfield Royal Infirmary and Calderdale Royal Hospital have been increased recently, and people with a disability have been told that they have to pay in the car parks. Leslie Hill, Director of Planning, Performance, Estates and Facilities, reported in the Huddersfield Examiner. Leslie said, all blue badge holders are in the receipt of benefits will have charges reimbursed under the hospital travel costs scheme, and all will continue to access spaces closest to the hospital areas. The money can be reclaimed through an office at hospital. It was reported in the Examiner that some readers thought that the charges and the new scheme are disgraceful and ridiculous. So what do you think to this?
It's a bit of a long-winded way, isn't it, of doing this? It feels like they're just creating more work, more paperwork. Because if they're able to park for essentially for free if they're going to be reimbursed anyway,
Yeah.
then why not just let them use their blue badge and park there, and cut out the you know, having to go and claim for it. And especially if these people already have a blue badge and mobility is an issue, maybe in some cases, and then they'll have to go and find the office to be reimbursed and walk all the way back. And you know, it's a bit of a long-winded way, really, isn't it?
Jeanette?
My take on it was slightly different. I took from that it was only the people that were in receipt of benefits, the people that were maybe close to poverty that needed the money back, that would actually get reimbursed. So if blue badges get the benefit of actually parking nearer, which is really their only problem, then why not charge them the same as everybody else has to
But
pay?
they're going to get reimbursed, aren't they?
Only if they're in receipt of benefits.
Benefits, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's one of those where I can see that, you know, they do need the proximity to the actual services, but, you know, most people, or I'm sure many people that have a blue badge are actually as perfectly well off as everybody else.
Do you think that they're trying to stop those who are using the badges of a parent or
on behalf of
you think so?
Yeah, it's more probably of a policing issue, because, you know, they do have registrations on them and that match up, you know, so you can, there is a way of policing it that way, but again, there's not always the police or street wardens there or car park attendants to monitor it, so it could be an added level of policing the blue badge.
I kind of thought, I mean, I get the benefits bit, but I also feel, you know, when you go to park your car in town and it says 90p and you don't have 90 pence, you pay £1, don't you? And you never get change, do you? And I thought, how many people are going to use this badge now and think, I can't be bothered to reclaim back my money? So I just took it as a kind of a money spinning thing, because, there'll be plenty who will go back for the money, but there'll be also equally amount of people who think, can't be bothered.
That is a difficulty. I think you're right. It does add an extra level of bureaucracy, like you were saying.
Okay, well, thanks for that. We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we will be talking to Sofia Buncy, and we will be discussing the launch of a report commissioned by Muslim Hands, Muslim Women in Prisons. And do small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, need to do more to help or beat youth employment?
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear.
Rods, reels, lines, hooks, sinkers, lures,
tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gaff, gloves, clothes, and pocket knife lunch.
Or you could simply advertise with KLTV. Online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Muslim Women in Prisons. Last week we discussed Muslim Women in Prisons, a report written by Sofia Buncy and Ishtiaq Ahmed. The report has gained national attention and given a real insight to the challenges Muslim women face both inside and outside of the prison system. Take a look at our VT.
The rationale behind us undertaking this project was to explore Muslim women's needs for structured support in order to reintegrate back into the community. And the second part of this was to identify some of the challenges and issues and concerns that may make their successful transfer back into the community difficult.
The report highlights specific challenges and barriers of women of Muslim background which face in prison.
Even when I began my research, I just tapped into the internet, Muslim women in prison, and unfortunately there were no real statistics or case studies around this. There seems to be a lot of information around Muslim men in custody and some of the issues and challenges they have. But because of the fact that there was nothing around Muslim women, it made it a little bit more difficult because we didn't actually know what we were dealing with and the scope or extent of this problem. I think the biggest barrier that these women had was a rejection by families and the breakdown of the family unit.
They often have to overcome additional and exceptional challenges and hurdles in the form of rejection and isolation by fellow prisoners and staff due to lack of understanding and empathy for their cultural and religious needs within the prison.
Unfortunately, when a Muslim woman offends, I think sometimes it's difficult for family members, especially the male members of that family, to accept and manage that female has dishonoured the family name by offending. And that's a strong issue for those of you that do work with the Muslim community or know of the Muslim community. You know that females are responsible for carrying the family honour, the family name, and by breaching that, it can have severe consequences for those women.
Family, friends, the community rejecting them whilst in prison, and when they leave, families broken up as they are not accepted. Personal issues become rife. Children they may have suffer and can lead to a spiral of difficulties, preventing integration into family life.
So unfortunately, a lot of the time, the women are cut off or cut away from visits, or only some members of the family will visit them. The second part of it, I think, is a cultural taboo, really, that surrounds these women.
There needs to be ownership by the families, the community, and in particular the Muslim community itself, as well as the relevant agencies. It isn't someone else's problem. And having the right support structures in place in prison and outside is crucial too.
And you're held to account by your local community. And families do care about their status within the Muslim community. I think sometimes when you have other daughters in your household, you do worry about suitable matches. You know, you have daughters that will be required for you to marry them off, and you think, well, if we accept an offender back into the household, what will that make us look like?
How do we move forward? First of all, local organisations. We have HPCA, but as the brother down there mentioned, you also have your masjids. And the majority of your Muslim people that go to your masjids are brothers. How do we address that issue? Get them more involved. Address the issue. Have your imams speak up about it.
I hope that the authorities to be here take notice, but particular request from the Muslim communities, come and join in this mission.
Secondly, Islamic charity providers. Muslim Hands were the first ones. We hope they're not the last. We hope a number of you come forward and do your duty towards not just Muslim but everybody else who is deprived of a voice in prison.
Those prisoners, male or female, but particularly females, they are in need of your help. Their issues are completely different than the male prisoners.
And thirdly, governmental influence. We have had a number of candidates locally standing here in attendance today. Speak to your local politicians. Make your voice heard. Make them change policy and bring that into practice.
So therefore, we need a different approach, but in essence, without compromising their integrity and their respect.
I hope the launch of today's report has not only raised awareness, but also gets us to start building on what the report identifies as issues and recommendations, and encourages further research, in particular on a national scale, because it is needed.
Well, Sophie, sounds like you've been really busy. How do you feel after a year of working in prisons? You finally free, or do you still go back there?
No, I still go back there.
Okay.
I was there today, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there today and Tuesday. And I think my work at that ground level is really important. As you're aware, my background's a community development worker. I didn't really know much about the prison system, so I've had to learn the trade of working in HMP, really, and their systems and structures, which are very different to what we have externally. As a community development worker, we can bring in things like, you know, community contacts, and we're managed to prize in a lot of other providers and perhaps lots of other funding. But it's a different trade, it's a different sector. I'm excited, I'm optimistic. I think I'm still running on adrenaline.
I wanted to ask you as well regarding the launch last week. Yeah. I mean, we were there and we saw there was a lot of very inspirational speakers, yourself included, and Maksud and others. And there seems to be a lot of head nodding, agreeing with your report, and I think it's an excellent report. But are you optimistic that things are going to happen?
I think there was goodwill. People definitely said the right things, and and by being present, a lot of people accepted perhaps that we have a problem with Muslim women in custody. I know that I was given applause a few times, and I know people were very. They conveyed that. They said, you've done a good job, and it's fantastic for you to research into that. I think you're right in that we need to be clear about what the next steps are. I had some fantastic emails the next day. A lot of people were very positive on a personal level, which they didn't really need to do, and very complimentary in saying, it's a fantastic piece of work. Thank you for researching it. It's much needed. So that was encouraging. That was really encouraging because there was a lot of trepidation when we took on this project, and personally I was thinking that am I going to get some backlash for this, or is it going to be questioned? I took it up because I'm a Muslim woman. I've seen it as an equality project, and it needed to be made clear in my community as well as mainstream service providers. You never know which way these things are going to go, do you? When you do something that's a little bit different or a little bit controversial, it could swing either way. But largely, I've had a positive response from Muslim charities as well as mainstream providers. So I'm sitting down to have those important conversations now to go on to the next step.
So, Jeanette, have you found anything interesting about that particular report?
Definitely. I mean, what is the position of Muslim women in Islam?
I think the issue of Muslim women in custody is a delicate issue, and because it's not talked about, some people sort of confuse it with the issue of Muslim women in Islam. The biggest thing that came out from the launch event was, I think, the fact that a lot of people confuse culture with religion. So the fact that the issue of Muslim women in prison is not really being addressed is largely a cultural issue, because in Islam women are given a very high regard. Where our Holy Prophet has said that if you want to attain heaven, it's at your mother's feet, which essentially means if you make your mother happy, you can. If you make your mother happy, that's one way of attaining and get yourself to heaven, really. Right. So Muslim women are given a lot of respect in Islam and a high privilege, but unfortunately, what happens in the Muslim community is that culturally there's a lot of baggage around it. So there's a lot to do with dishonour, family name and shame. And when a Muslim woman offends, because she carries the honour of the family, it's a bit like saying, well, you've dishonoured. And for some reason, it's a Muslim men that enforce these values. And this launch was about me saying that there's differential treatment. Why are Muslim men treated so differently? And there's so many statistics and figures about how many Muslim men there are in custody. I think it's 1 in every 4 prisoners is a Muslim male, and the level of support they require. Yet I find it quite shameful that there's nothing about Muslim women in custody. It's not even mentioned. We won't talk about that because we don't want to deal with it.
Right.
I think Sam also wanted to raise a point.
Yeah, you're saying with the family honour and everything. Obviously, there's an impact on the family as a whole, and especially the children. With the dishonour and the disgrace. How are the children accepted in society from that, and how do they deal with that?
I think it's so difficult because one of the providers brought this up as well at the launch. Because it's a new thing we're discussing. Largely, if a Muslim male offends, the children go to mum. But what happens when the mother offends? Who's going to safeguard those children and keep those children? And I found that a few of them are subjected to bullying and taunts by community members and other children saying, your mum's in prison. And it's somehow just more accepted that if a Muslim male is in prison, and if it's a female, it does impact on the children, and it follows them just like it'll follow that woman for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to move away from the stigma of having been an offender, and the children as well. So I think the ripples go very wide throughout the whole family, definitely.
How do you start to change the attitude? Is it essentially a male issue? I'm asking this question. There's 3 women on the front. You're all going to say yes, of course it is.
It's a difficult question. I think we both know, Milton, there's a lot of issues within the Muslim community that need addressing. There's a lot that hit the media. I think it's a slow process. We've started that process by starting a dialogue. Maybe it took for a Muslim female to start the dialogue, because I'm not sure any male started this dialogue. You know, we have Muslim advisors, we have perfectly competent people in our charities that do know what's happening in our female establishment. So we've started the dialogue. There's quite a healthy report to start that, and I have every intention, just as Ishtiaq and Maqsood do, to continue this and work towards chipping away at those cultural sanctions that people place on these women. But it'll be a slow process, a very slow process.
You mentioned Ishtiaq there, and I thought he chaired the conference extremely well.
Yeah.
How instrumental was he with this particular report and the project?
I think we've all brought an individual piece to the project. Ishtiaq's just been fantastic. You know, he's done about 30 years of community development experience. And he's very used to addressing hard issues through Bradford Council for Mosques, who he does a lot of work with, such as grooming and extremism. I think he played a pivotal role in this project as well. He has a lot of respect in the Muslim community. He's just fantastic. You know, we call him the guru. He's just good at addressing anything and everything, but we all had our individual role within this, and he was core. You know, it's just been largely the two of us working on the core delivery of this, and the core writing of the report with the overseeing it by Maqsood Ahmed. So he's been really played a very crucial role in it. I don't think either of us could have done it without each other.
True, yeah. There seems to be, though, a double whammy for the Muslim women. Guilty as charged, they get sent to jail, they do the time, and then when they come out, they seem to, or there's an implication that there's a life sentence.
There's a lifelong implication, definitely. In there.
Yeah. So do you think that is a defeminization, an extra defeminization of women, as we see women in society, and then because they're held in such high esteem in Islam, some of them might not even feel that they exist anymore?
Yeah, I think there is that in cases where women feel like they can't go back to their families, or they move away from their communities because perhaps their crimes hit the local media, and they feel like, I've got to start again. But you, in a way, you make yourself anonymous, don't you? Because there's a fear that you won't be accepted again. There's that fear of judgment. So you start to question who you are as well, which is it's not a nice feeling, especially because in Islam it's such a forgiving religion. You know, it says time and time again, Allah will forgive you. You repent, and He'll forgive. But unfortunately, it's a case of our community that's not forgiving, and the culture sort of totally overrides the religion. And I find that a lot of these women begin to question themselves and their being and who they are, because everything they thought they were, an amalgamation of their culture, their religion, they're not that anymore. They don't know where they fit in.
Wow, that's really big challenging stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, thanks, Sofia, and once again I offer the same opportunities. If you keep us posted about what is happening, and please use our KLTV studios to keep the general public informed of the progress.
Definitely.
And I wish you all the best
in
your endeavours. Thank you. Do SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, need to do more to beat youth unemployment? A survey reported by Simon Brooke, conducted by the CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personal and Development, earlier this year, revealed that just over half, 58% of small, medium enterprises employ young people. Youth employment stats states 743,000 young people aged 16 to 24 were unemployed in November to January 2015. I'm asking all three of you, do you think we, small and medium-sized businesses should do more? I mean, Farnley Estate, 750 football pitches. There's a lot of work to be done up there, surely. Do you think you should be employing more young people?
Definitely, because at the end of the day, they're the grafters, they're the workers, they're the future.
Is that the young people?
Yeah, and it's giving them the opportunities to explore. Sometimes when I hear things like this, it makes me wonder about education. What real education are they getting? Some schools do real life, hands-on things from start to finish. Again, colleges, it's not textbook. The youth need to get out there, and for small businesses to have, the willingness and the education put into these young adults who you know, they need to know the skills and they need to learn the skills for real life, not just in a classroom.
But there is a perception that young people don't want to work, or when they do get work, they're not work ready.
I think there's that, perhaps for some of these small and medium-sized businesses, there's resource implications, isn't there? And sometimes they're just so busy in trying to manage themselves. They need somebody that's competent, and somebody that doesn't need a whole lot of training either. And you know, I'm all for advocating on young people. You know, my background's youth development, but you also know that I'm core and instrumental in running the charity that we have as well. So I think the conversations I've had, I know some organisations just see it in terms of, you know, lack of experience. Is this person going to have sufficient training to take up the job role? And can we afford to take this gamble and risk? So I think it's a two-pronged approach, really, and it depends on what the organisation's needs are at that time and the risk that they're willing to take.
What about changing school to be more vocational?
I think that depends on the young person. I think there should be opportunities for people to follow either the academic or the vocational path. And there are a lot of people that the academic path doesn't work as well as the vocational side of things does. And it's tough for young people out there. You hear the stats, the ones that you mentioned. It really is hard. But I think sometimes from a small to medium enterprise side of things, they're struggling too. And it is that risk on somebody that they'd have to spend time and money training up. And you can kind of see it from both sides of the picture, but there's no doubt about it. It's tough for young people out there, and there needs to be something done to make it easier for them to get work.
Seems like that there's arguments for and against, and everybody's falling down the middle of it. What would you suggest as a way forward?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, stripping it back to basics, like we say. You know, creating sectors of opportunities within employment, you know, as a goal, or training as a goal, but start right back at the basics, strip it all down. If you're in the engineering sector, if you're in the farming sector, if you're in the retail sector, learn that from the ground up. So when you know, last year of school, first year of college, get the education right, so then the SMEs don't have that issue and they know that these people are prepared and have at least a basic understanding, so they don't have to hold the hands, and that they've got more faith in what the people can and the young people can do.
Okay, well, thanks for that. More local news. Deaton Centre. Deaton. Arson attacks. Police visit Huddersfield schools as call-outs reach 8 in 8 days. Police have urged anyone who saw any suspicious activity in the area to contact them on the non-emergency number 101. Huddersfield Examiner 28th of April 2015 reported gas bottles were placed in one fire and police believe that school-aged youths are behind them. Police are to visit schools in the Huddersfield area in bid to crack down on arson attacks in Deaton. And the latest attack at a terrace house a stone's throw away from the Deaton Centre, which was hit on Saturday night, put lives of nearby occupants as well as fire crews in danger. Huddersfield Inspector John Dunkley said officers are working with fire services, colleagues and the community to identify who has been starting these fires. It is believed they are local youths causing antisocial behaviour and nuisance on the old Deaton Centre site. That is now in the process of being demolished. There will be an increased patrols in the area and we are working with contractors regarding their security and at the site in order to prevent a reoccurrence of these fires. The Huddersfield Carnival to go ahead despite loss of £78,000 grant. Huddersfield Examiner reported on April 2015, Kirklees Council this year have agreed to provide £50,000 in transition funding, but not next year. Organisers will have to totally rely on donations. Huddersfield Carnival is to return this summer despite a major funding cut. The 31st two-day event is billed to take place on July the 10th and 11th, but will not include some of the key crowd-drawing events as in previous years. Following the announcement of the funding cut by Kirklees Council, £28,000 has been removed from the £78,000 given to the group by the council. Its principal funder, who decided that it could no longer afford to support the event due to the budget cuts. This has resulted in the scrapping of the famed community party in Greenhead Park, which took place in the afternoon after the parade. Instead, the Hodawi Centre on Great Northern Street is hoped to be commissioned as the after-parade hub for visiting groups, but it is a site which only has room for 180 people. The event regularly attracts thousands of people from nearby and abroad, and last year pulled a crowd of 40,000 people. Delroy Facey, in our show on the 17th of April, we talked about the former Huddersfield Town footballer facing charges for match fixing. Delroy was found guilty at Birmingham Crown Court and has been jailed for 2.5 years after being convicted of match fixing allegations. Our support goes out to the Facey family during these difficult times. Surprised and amazed by donkey guest Joey, reported in the Huddersfield Examiner Neighbourhood News. A donkey from Leeds Donkey Sanctuary was recently taken to meet residents at Longroyd's and Pilling House Care Home in Skelmanthorpe. Ian Lodge, the activities organiser, said that the visits had surprised and amazed staff, residents and visitors. Donkeys from the sanctuary are specially trained to go indoors and even do bedside visits. Maybe people remembered happy visits to the seaside or the countryside, or visits simply help boost their well-being. I mean, this is a good thing or a crazy thing. Bedside visits, next thing you talk about talking donkey. What do you reckon? Good thing?
I think it's both good thing and crazy thing. And why not if it puts a smile on the face? Fantastic.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, they say studies have shown that, you know, animal interaction boosts your well-being. You know, it makes you a lot happier to sit stroking a cat or a dog, especially a donkey. That's a new one on me. But yeah, again, it makes us all smile. It would make you feel better in that type of environment. So, you know, all good and all crazy.
Yeah, break from the norm. Why not?
But just imagine you're lying there, you know, in your retreat, and all of a sudden you see this donkey. In
the last visitor you're expecting.
I'd want an ice cream as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'd like to say a big thank you to our guests, Sam, Sofia and Jeanette. And that's all, folks. If you want to contact us for anything, please contact us on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or search on Twitter @The Weekly Windup. Thanks very much. See you all next week.